Sorry about that, family. We're having issues with the internet service. I'm not sure if it's my brother Jermaine Morris's internet or if it's mine, but we're having a couple issues. We were having a great dialogue about the Kwame Brown situation. We're giving our opinions on, should the brother have clapped back the way he did on Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes? Was he just fed up with the situation? You know what I mean? Jermaine was just saying that, like I said a few minutes ago, you can't really control the clapback. Like if you mention somebody's name or if you mention someone like in a negative manner and they come back calling you bitches and hoes, you can't necessarily be like, hey man, why are you talking to me like that? Well, you kind of started this by putting my name in your mouth. And I'm sure with Kwame, like his situation, he's just hella tired of everybody bringing him up. Like using him as like a punching bag when it comes to being a bust. You know what I mean? But something else I want to talk to my brother Kwame about. I mean, my brother, I keep saying his name. My brother Jermaine about. Now, being disrespectful and calling, because I'm going to be honest, I don't even have a problem with the word bust, just to be honest, like me personally. But personal jabs, calling them a scrub, all these personal jabs where you have Skip Bayless and people like this who fucking give you nicknames and all this shit, right? None of this is cool. However, how do we address somebody that underachieved? Because we can look at, he was a first round pick with Michael Jordan, and we're looking at the difficulties of what he came into, right? Like the Bulls didn't want him, or I'm sorry, the Wizards didn't want him. Like my brother Jermaine said, he ended up going to the Lakers, which had Kobe, who was a dog. You know what I mean? Morris back on here, and I'm gonna talk to him about it real quick. You know what I mean? Because I think if we're just comparing you to other athletes and you're a underwhelming, like you didn't do good in said sport, how are you to be addressed? Like, is it to be addressed hella respectful? Like, what do you call somebody who was a first round pick in their career? You there?
Yeah. We had a little adventure with this Facebook today.
Hey, but Jermaine, I wanted to ask you this.
Okay.
So, I'm not even against calling someone a bust if you leave it there. Like personal attacks, like Skip Bayless and them come up with nicknames for players, all this stupid shit. I'm not with that. But what do you call a player who doesn't live up to his potential? Like if you're a commentator and you're just talking about the 500 people that's in the NBA, you're not comparing them to you. You're not comparing them to people outside of the sport. You're just comparing them to the other NBA players that's in the league. What do you call? Because you mentioned his problems with Michael Jordan. He went to the Lakers. His problems with Kobe. But on the court, if you look at video or look at the film, damn it, on the court, he didn't do well.
Yeah.
So how do you categorize a brother who was a first round pick and in his career, 13 years, I looked at his stats, he didn't do well like the entire time. How do you categorize him?
Then you say it exactly how you just said it. That if I invested in my first round pick in you and you don't pan out, then that's just it. I invested my first round pick in you, you didn't pan out. Like, because Dwight Howard had the same problem when he got to the Lakers with the first time. And he was everything but a child of God because he underperformed based upon what people said he was supposed to do. And they ran him up out of there.
Oh, God damn it.
But if you're an analyst, call the game. You know, like right now, you got the Clippers in there, and they call Paul George, Pandemic P, and how he gets all shaky, and how they got nicknames for him for his underperforming games. And then, then he goes and puts together a couple of games, and it's like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. But you'll start, so-and-so's not clutch. So-and-so, falls apart. So-and-so, I remember they used to call LeBron 75 Cent because he was only good for 3 quarters. People forget before he went on the run in Miami Like LeBron used to have fourth quarter meltdowns, and they used to just talk mess about him. If you want to call the game, then call the game. But when you start talking about this man is this and that, he's scrub, he's garbage, he's that. That's where you show me the stat that equals the word garbage. Like show the direct translation. If it says, okay, everybody who scores averages less than 8 points, the technical term is garbage. Okay, he's garbage. But if you're just saying he averaged 7 points a game, then just say he averaged 7 points a game. And guys at his position, at his size, are averaging, 15 and 12, and he's averaging 6 and 4. He's below average. He's underperforming for his position. And keep it about the job. It's no different than if he was a waiter, if he's a school teacher. If you don't like the service of a waiter, fine, man. My food is cold. You getting out? He's not coming back around checking. You start calling this waiter all these names and stuff, he might come see you. You know what I'm saying? If your job is to call the game, then call the game. And I get that's why his point, because he's not talking about fans calling him stuff. He's not even talking about other players calling him stuff. He's talking about all those years originally of analysts whose job is to specifically go to the stats, objectively call the game, and they're the ones who are out of pocket.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing, because again, how they spoke about him in a lot of instances wasn't correct. And over the years, it just became like using him as a punching bag, right?
Yeah, the running joke.
But so over the brother's career, because again, I looked at his stats, and I'm not gonna call him garbage, but his stats weren't that good. We can say he was a really good NBA player. Okay. But he got $64 million.
Yeah.
So he still won. You know what I mean? He in life, he's not a bust. Like in life, he's not a failure. Like he was mentioning the fact that his mama lived on a golf course and all this kind of shit. And I agree with that. But on the court, he didn't do well. Again, I wouldn't have called him garbage, but on the court, and it's funny how Stephen A, one clip I did watch, Stephen A put together a clip of like his, he was dropping the ball. Like it was a clip that was horrible. You know what I mean? Now I know this clip was put together for this purpose, but Kwame, what I didn't hear him say, because he said I was hurt, I had to deal with Mike, I had to deal with Kobe, but he didn't say throughout my career, I just wasn't that damn good. Yeah. And I think that's a fact.
Yeah, I think the only thing I heard him say too is that if you looked at the minutes he played for productivity, he was solid for a few seasons. They just didn't play him much. So now whether that had been injury, whether that had been producing, whatever, he said, but he come in and get, 8 and 4 in the first half and then never play again the rest of the game. He'd be on pace for a 16 and 8 game. That's not a scrub. So it's true. So, and then the thing is, it's like when you're talking about these guys, even if say there's tiers, there's levels to this. So say at his position, he's the 30th ranked guy at his position in the league. He's the bottom tier of the most elite league on the planet. Like every country, there's professional basketball across the planet. The NBA is the most elite players. He's the bottom of the top tier. So to say that he's just garbage, that's like, the Kings are a horrible basketball team. Okay, in relation to the NBA, but I'll take the Pepsi challenge of the Sacramento Kings against any squad you put together that you make up of dudes that you think are good at the park.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, oh man, so-and-so's better. Go ahead, get your 5 against they starting 5 and see what your score is. And so people you have to put stuff in context of yes, playing against Tim Duncan, he's an underachiever. playing against, you know, the dudes that he played of his era, against Dirk Nowitzki, you know, playing against these guys, yes, he drastically underachieved. But in the grand scheme of things, which is what his point is, he said they don't keep you in the NBA because they like you. Like, you need to be serviceable. You need to do a job. There is something that you're there for. You know, I looked at guys like so I'm a Laker fan, but they brought in Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee last year. Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee's job was to absorb the punishment so Anthony Davis didn't have to. Because Anthony Davis didn't want to be in the paint. Their only job was to bang with them big boys in the paint, get him in foul trouble, absorb all the hits so Anthony Davis could do what he do. Statistically, those guys weren't, if you looked at what they're 6 points, 3 rebounds, you know, 5 points, 3, nothing. But they were serviceable, that they weren't there to get 20 and 15. So you look at the duration of his career, people were putting him on their squads for a reason, even if it was just to clog up the lane. So to him, he's saying, if you're going to talk sports, which is supposed to be your job, then you should be looking at all the reasons why I'm on a team, as opposed to simply saying, when you compare me to Tim Duncan, I'm garbage. You know, and I think that that's valid. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, they don't just pay you $64 million and just keep you on the squad. There's a whole lot of dudes that they liked who are at home somewhere. Dudes get cut every day. You know, somebody on the practice squad, somebody trying to get a 10-day. There's dudes that they liked on teams that they send packing. So the fact that he had a career as long as he did, he was doing something for somebody. And if the analyst job, if my job is to say I know basketball, then I should be presenting an argument like that right there. I should be looking at from a basketball mentality. What is he out? Okay, he's not scoring points. Is he clogging the lane? Is he getting? And maybe he's just getting rebounds. Maybe he's just drawing fouls. Maybe he just comes in there to get the dude in foul trouble, and once the dude's in foul trouble, we sit him down. Like, there's way more than just making him the running butt of a bunch of jokes. And that level of disrespect is why they're getting this version of him now.
Makes sense. Now, so because his platform has grown like tremendously since he started talking, right?
Yeah.
And where do you think he goes from here? Do you think, because eventually I think if he wants to continue talking every day, and because the brother is articulate, he's entertaining, I think he can do it. But eventually he gonna have to stop talking about people, right? Like, it's gonna have to become a platform where, because he can only call out the motherfuckers that keep saying his name. Once nobody's talking about him like that no more, then he gonna have to just create a platform based on what? Like, what direction do you think he's gonna go in when he can't talk about a Boyce or he can't talk about a Stephen A. Smith?
Well, I think he'll do what he's doing, like the Devin George interview. Devin George has been doing amazing things since he quit playing, about, you know, helping to get single moms in homes, about, you know, building grocery stores in his community, about, like, Devin George has been using his money to uplift where he lives at. And he put Devin George on his show to let him talk about what he's doing, to show some of these other players who played and other people what can be done if we do it ourselves. So, I mean, that's the direction I think that he's going to stick with. He's just got time for the folks that want to talk about it, you know, but because I think there's a whole lot of players that are guys like Kwame Brown, guys like Devin George, dudes who played years. You know, some of these guys, like Devin George, got rings, you know, that are not household names, that are not known for being great players, but have made some money and then went back home and have done something with what they've achieved. I think that if you start tapping into those players and start tapping into those guys who are doing something, I think that he could have a very successful, and I just mean by successful, just like an uplifting, supportive platform that, you know, that's more than just something for the shade room or something for TMZ.
Now, sometimes, like, watching how he presents his information, one thing I say that I don't like about how the public receives info at times, right? Because it almost, and I was talking about this when we had our little mix-up a few seconds ago, it almost feels like people in our community feel like they have to choose sides. Like, if I'm rocking with Kwame, I can't like Boyce, I can't like Stephen A. Smith, I can't like Steven Jackson. I don't agree with that, because all the people that I listen to, it's something about their message that I don't rock with. But I find the good stuff, you know what I mean? Give the brother his props and I keep on moving. How do you feel about that?
I think that happens. Everybody's, you know, everything is Bloods or Crips. It's this or that. It's all gangs, clicked up mentality. But I do think that, like, I watched a bunch of his videos, and a lot of the stuff that he was saying is valid in the sense of the stuff that he's calling out. He's not alone in the thinking. So people who are starting to like, yes, that's what I'm thinking that too. They're not clicking up with him versus the people he's talking about because he's saying something. They're agreeing with him because they agree with him. You know, like they're like, nah, I don't, you know, like with Boyce, I watched the thing where he was saying, you know, you're coming after me. So, you know, I rock with, you know, Dr. Claude Anderson. So you're like insulting Claude Anderson. Kwame Brown was like, I never mentioned that man's name. And that man has been speaking for a long time. If he felt a certain kind of way, I don't believe he's got any issue speaking up for himself. So that right there, you just tried to, you know, put some weight on your position to invalidate him. Do you know what I mean? So to call out behavior like that for somebody to be like, yeah, that's garbage. That's not, you know, either or. And there's people we just hoist up that we just, that, you know, it's okay if they go. You know, I don't think it's coincidence that we have certain people who keep having issues. Stephen A. Smith keeps having issues with black men. Like, for the same reason. Like, you keep calling out black men differently than you call out white athletes. You know, if this same narrative has been said about him for 20 years, different generations of players, they're not siding with Kwame Brown because it's against Stephen A. Smith. They're like, no, we're tired of hearing this same narrative. You know, why do I got to keep hearing about, you know, get off the weed from this player? But I don't remember how many issues, how many times he didn't repeatedly bring up Ben Roethlisberger and the multiple rape charges. You know, why wasn't that constantly being brought up every single week? Like you bring up this black player who smokes weed. You know, why is we're gonna talk about this, you know, this guy who's over here doing this, but the white dude who tried to beat that black woman half to death, tried to kill her a few months back. That story was on for like, why wasn't that dude on the front page? Why wasn't he all over FS1? Why wasn't he all over Sports Center? Why wasn't that story on repeat about this white athlete who tried? It's not like it was just, he tried to kill this black woman. And nobody had time for that story. So when black men are called, like saying, you got all this time to talk about this dude smoking weed, but you got no energy for white athletes doing heinous activity, that's a valid point. You know, and if they're challenging Stephen A. on that, that's fine. Like, I don't see issue. I do understand like the clique mentality of why does it have to be either or, but I think some of it is just like they're calling folks on real stuff.
Got it. Okay. No, I'm completely with you there, and I just think because I'm a free thinker, so I'm not listening to Kwame Brown, so I can be on like Team Kwame. I just like the commentary. He's saying a lot of real shit. Need to be aware of a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. He's saying it in a way that's kind of funny and intellectual at the same time, so we can kind of grasp it. You know what I mean? Now, in general, though, I have another question. This may be the last question. In general, the whole conscious YouTube thing, like, how do you think a black person who may not be aware of Tariq and Boyce and Umar and Young Pharaoh and Zoe and Corey, just name the names of dudes that are online that I respect a lot of these dudes, right? How do you think, what's the healthiest way to approach their content? Because as we know, Some of these brothers don't like each other. Some of these
Most of them.
brothers kind of go off the deep end a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how should a black person who just looking to get some good information, who love black people too, how should they approach listening to all these brothers?
I start with objectively, and then who speaks to you. You know, like there's things that I can sit there and I can listen to Dr. Umar and I can agree with 70% of what he's talking about. When he talks about the need for parental advocacy when it pertains to parents with kids in the school system, the over prescribing of medication to our children, the preschool to prison pipeline, the misdiagnosis in the special education racket that goes through the district across the country. Like he speaks on stuff that is valid and that is sound. However, he speaks on some stuff that I don't necessarily co-sign. So you listen to him and then you take what fits and then you set it aside. There's things that I can listen to Dr. Claude Anderson for, stuff that I can get from Boyce Watkins. There's Roland Martin every now and then may say something. But to me, realistically, I can listen to somebody like Ben Shapiro, who's hardcore, you know, Jewish dude, conservative, all that. There's still some valid stuff in there if you sit and listen. So I think that you can there just because you don't have to agree, I may not agree with 80% of it. It doesn't make the 20% less valid. You know, like I think that if somebody just starts listening, go in objectively and hear what people are saying and then be able to make your own decision. You know, I don't think that's any different if you're trying to get information through the woke community than if you're trying to get religious. If the first thing you turn on is somebody from the Nation of Islam, if Farrakhan is the first thing you hear when you go to YouTube, you can become indoctrinated. If you don't have an objective ear, all of a sudden you're going to run out and join the Nation of Islam. And then when you start hearing a Christian video, you're going to, that's wrong. That's this, that. No, you just heard Farrakhan first. Any more different than if you heard T.D. Jakes first. Do you know what I mean? If you heard, like, just to be objectively able to listen to information, process it, what speaks to your values and your core beliefs, and what is it that you want to get out of it. And then I would even suggest being able to listen to somebody who you do not directly agree with, just to hear an opposing point of view objectively. That'd be my
interesting. Well, I appreciate you. No, I feel you. And that's something that is funny. I think I heard me and you talked about something like that a long time ago. And you didn't even know that you was kind of talking to me, because when I first started listening to conscious people, reading books, I didn't listen to anything objectively. Like, this is the information. This is real. Everybody else is lying. See, they lying and say it right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear the opposing view, because now when I look back, I knew it would have shook my foundation a little bit.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I needed to believe this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that, so also I look at, these are people. So I look at being in the presence of Brother Zoe, been in the presence of Dr. Umar, been in the presence of Boyce Watkins, been in the presence of after a while, David Banner, you realize these are people. So I always keeping that in mind. Okay, this is a person who has a particular perspective and they're passionate about something that speaks to their belief system. So let me hear that out. Just because you believe it wholeheartedly does not mean that it is, in my mind, let's not even say right or wrong, it may not be something that's for me. So I'll hear you out and then I'll see if it works. And then I can listen to, I like to hold things up. If I believe something to be true, I should be able to use the scientific method. I should be able to hold it up in contrast and it still be true. But if it can only be true in a vacuum, or it can only be true by itself, then that might be something that I need to kind of really, really evaluate. You know, I should be able, if I believe this to be true, I should be able to put it up against 10 different things and it still be just as valid. So being able to listen to something and be able to challenge what it is that you're hearing and not just necessarily shut off, because as soon as you start to hear something that conflicts, it shakes your trust in it. If it's that shaky that it can't stand up to criticism, then it may not be as strong as an opinion as you think it is.
That's good shit. That's a good point, bro. That's a good point. And I only brought that up because I see that